This is episode 2. My name is Isaac Steenberg. I'm your host. Today with us, as usual, we have Robert and Hamzah.
Hello.
Today is the third time we record this podcast. We've done it 2 times before. The first time, the podcast got deleted. Robert, tell us what happened the second time.
Yeah, the second time we had recorded everything. It was all running smoothly. We had like 50, 60 minutes, and
Yep.
when we played it through to hear it, we instantly realized that the microphone wasn't really plugged in, so the sound was just awful. It was just like a like a like a buzz
Static.
sound for the whole
Yeah.
podcast. So it's been 3 times where we've filmed the whole podcast. But
But
you
in
know,
a sense, this kind of benefits us
yeah,
in the way that we know how to structure it now and we know what comes towards us throughout this podcast. So we're kind of like prepared for it this time.
Yeah, in Sweden you say tredje gången gillt. So,
Time
Yeah.
to charm.
yeah,
Third time's the
exactly.
charm.
So today we're gonna talk about COVID-19 and its environmental sustainability, the environmental impact that COVID-19 has done. Is it positive? Is it negative? So the COVID-19 started late 2019. What were you guys' first reaction when you heard about it?
To be honest, I was really like laid back about it. I remember laughing about the fact that it came from like a small market in China and people were over exaggerating it.
Yeah.
After a bit, it came
Do
to the
you guys
realization that
do you guys think it comes from the market? Because some people think it comes from like a Chinese lab, and
I mean,
also what I've heard from my grandmother that lives in China, like in their community, they got told that the coronavirus was brought by an American soldier to China. So it's like here in the Western world, we it was a guy who ate the bat in China, but in China, like they think it's a soldier from America. So it's like
it's a blame
insane.
game basically.
they're trying to keep a good image for their country and
Exactly.
like blame it on the Americans.
Yeah.
You could think
But-
that no one would really know exact cause of how it started.
Yeah.
I mean, Corona, like COVID-19, has existed for hundreds of years, I think, but only in animals. So, I mean, it's
Right.
just recently been able to, like, transmit to humans. But it is pretty common of people to think that it was made in a lab to maybe get our DNA. You know, when we take the test, they get our DNA tests. I think like they get our DNA. So some people are afraid that the governments have just made this virus to get all the humans' DNA and collect it.
To make us take the vaccine. To be
That
honest,
could be a possible outcome.
I think there's not in a single chance that that's true. But
I
you
doubt it.
guys maybe think otherwise. Because it would take a lot of people to create such a thing, and the rumors would leak from somewhere.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
that
I mean, we
of
don't
how
know how
many
much power the government actually has, but I don't think
how many
it's very
workers, at least one of them would be paid maybe hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars to like leak in a sense of what the government's doing, and that happens with all the big businesses where even if they
Yeah.
have like let's say a rival business, they would like sneak in people to give them the information and then they can develop on that in a sense. So
Hmm.
I personally don't believe it, but it could be true. Like everyone has their own views on it, and you
There's
have to.
people who even have like written books about it. They're
Really?
they think
Yeah.
they believe it.
I mean, mankind is filled with different opinions and thoughts. There's
Yeah.
always going to be people who
I
think
mean,
different.
that's how life runs.
Yeah.
If you don't disagree with anything, think that conversation runs with people disagreeing. imagine you agree with everything. Imagine, so let's say I'm telling you something and you just reply to me. You're like, yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything would be so boring.
True.
Yeah.
So that's how life. But we're getting really off track. We should go back to the question of, um,
Yeah.
could Corona eventually be good for the environment?
So first, we have to talk about what the environmental impacts we have seen now, and what the environmental impacts would be in the future. So talking about
Yeah.
now, we've seen animals showing up. We have seen cities. I mean, we have seen lakes. Their water has become more blue, more clear, and
Yeah.
there's less emissions in the air.
Yeah. You think it's gonna like the emissions? Do you think it was just a temporary thing?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
because
And because I'm pretty sure it's already gone back, or even above how it was before.
depends on the country
But
though.
It says here,
yeah, yeah.
stated by NASA's Asia satellite from December 2020. So this was exactly prior 1 year to when COVID really kicked in. So from winter 2019. So from December 2020 to March 2021, China's air pollution decreased drastically. 60% less air pollution, which is said to have been the cause of 7 million deaths per year, stated by National Geographic. So to think that at that point, within those 3 months, a the air pollution went 60% down from what it was.
60. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that is a
That
lot.
just shows how crazy
Do you
pollution
think that
there
is
was.
because when was this? What time periods were you talking about?
This was December 2020, so and March 2021, so start of this year and prior exactly 1 year to when COVID
Okay.
really started. So to
Well,
think that
yeah,
at that time, so between when COVID started or when it was like fully in the media and news and things until this 2020 December, that just built up all the guidelines, the lockdowns, the restrictions, uh, to then the December 2020 when it fully kicked in China, and the outcomes of it really showed that 60%, that's a huge number.
that
To
is,
think
yeah,
that
especially
Yeah.
for
our,
China.
our whole, exactly, like their population, what's China's population?
Over
Um,
1 billion.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Point.
1.39 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To think that all of them breathing in that air, then
Well, I
see
mean,
that
is it the whole of China that the statistics mention? Because
what
the pollution issue is not a problem across all of China, but like,
it's just the big cities thinking that uh factories, car emissions, especially because of the amount of people in China, and
yeah,
China is such a modernized country where they are like not in a sense ahead of time, but in a sense that they're really techful, if
I
that's a word.
think when it comes to tech, they're ahead of time, definitely.
And
technology.
Yeah, compared to other countries.
Really, and like, what
Mm-hmm.
type of technology? Because
Security.
yeah, because like we don't really see Chinese companies really leading the market in technology. Like nowadays, I think they have good products, but I don't really know if they're very worldwide.
For example, the security in China, it has like such a good facial recognition. Facial recognition. It can even see your emotions. It can see if you're stressed. So if
Yeah,
the camera catch you and you look stressed, it will focus on you and like look on past footage of where you have been and so on. So that's really impressive actually. And actually
yeah,
a personal anecdote from when I was in China around 2 years ago, three maybe. When I was walking and we were gonna stop a taxi, the taxi was available, but he didn't stop because it was in the middle of the road, and we wondered why. And then a guy came up to us and said like there's security cameras around. He can't stop, otherwise he will be fined. But here in
Oh,
Sweden, the taxi would just stop.
yeah, in China they have a lot of like cameras everywhere. Have you seen the main roads where they basically have cameras every like 100 meters or something. It's crazy, and I don't know. I would feel pretty uncomfortable living in that, like with
Yeah, just the thought of being watched constantly.
yeah,
Mm.
constantly under like surveillance of the government.
I didn't think about it when I was there though. I didn't notice anything either.
Hmm.
However, the crime rates there are almost 0% in the bigger cities.
China.
It's yeah, there's
Oh,
almost
okay.
no crimes anymore.
Hmm.
That's a good thing though.
Yeah, of course.
But
Thinking about COVID and the restrictions that brought along, it clearly gave a bad image and it clearly affected um the economy in a really bad way. But
mm-hmm.
I think that what pros came along with that? But there were cons, of course. The economy collapsed in many countries. But what about the pros that came along with it?
Well, I don't think there will be any economic pros that came along with the coronavirus. Not as far as I know. Maybe there will be something in the long run or at the end of Corona, but I think there are some benefits of the coronavirus, and that's not only like the emissions and the environment. Maybe the animal kingdom is a bit more free, but
What
also like us as people. I think like the normal is gonna change. Isaac mentioned this before that like Isaac, you wanna talk about
Yeah,
it?
sure. So, will we go back to normal as we had before, or is there going to be a new normal? Personally, I think there's a new normal in all different aspects, hygienically, our trust in economics, like our trust in currency has decreased so much uh,
Yeah,
after this pandemic. That's why the prices of cryptocurrencies skyrocket right now.
yeah.
think about um thinking about globally with the benefits of COVID, you could think that it was stated that we as a civilization on the human world, we are living on 1.8 worlds rather than one. So
Mm-hmm.
us, how many people are we on the earth? 8 million? 8 billion?
I think it's 7.7 billion.
So us 7.7 billion people are living on 1.8 worlds. So almost two separate worlds, meaning we are using the resources of two worlds on our one world.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that with COVID, let's say um many deaths, that reduces population and the amount of people, let's say the amount of new people born every year, the rate must have gone down due to
Well,
the fact that
if we look at the death rates, I think most of the deaths were in older people. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure it's really gonna affect overpopulation or anything like that, since it is mostly the older people who are more sensitive to the virus.
Also, have you guys heard about that? We don't have to worry about the overpopulation since the majority
Yeah, I
of
heard about that.
the people are old. It's it's like stacking up blocks, and then like the most of the blocks are up there, and those will soon fall when the old people die, and then uh, the tower will be much more thinner since us younger people are much fewer than the older people. So that's why the population, the Earth will not overpopulate if we continue like this.
Yeah, I've seen a video about that. How I think we will continue growing. I don't think there's more old people than young people. I think it's the opposite. Like there is the same amount of say 7 to 13 year olds, and there are what like 30 to I don't know 35 year olds. So I think like it's the same in kids and adults, but I think we don't have as many old people right now because there were much less people back then. But I heard that we will continue to expand until we have, I think, 11 or 12 billion people walking around the planet,
Looking
and
at,
then
That's crazy.
I will stay kind of in those numbers.
yeah, exactly.
Going back to how the environment, let's say animals, how do you think with 12 billion people, how do you think they would? Because see, some animals are more brain capable than others, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say in general, how do you think animals would react? Because let's start with how do you think they reacted to their everyday lives, them seeing, let's say, birds in a city, they would see it full of people, and once like let's say a lockdown came, it was empty.
Yeah,
Of course, they reacted positively, although some animals are human dependent, like ducks, for example. And those animals who depend on us humans have gone around starving and like eating from
yeah,
garbage bins. And that's not a good thing.
Did you guys see that once London hit its first lockdown, um, the streets were covered with pigeons?
No, isn't it like
Did you
that
not see that?
normally though?
Because think about this, pigeons are something really common, especially in like central London.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pigeons are really common, and to think that some of them, in some aspects, they are human dependent. Um, not in all aspects again, but in some aspects, and to think that, let's say, if they would, you would see them in groups around, let's say, the road, and then they would fly away due to a person walking like through them. But
Mm-hmm.
without that, do you think they felt more free in a sense that they can be wherever they want without being disturbed?
Yes, of course. Why wouldn't they?
yeah. And what about if we keep expanding like the humankind? What about the species that are gonna go extinct? Because we already see, I think like hundreds of species go extinct every day.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
like
I
the northeastern white rhino or whatever it's called.
yeah, and pandas are also low. Do you think that like us humans will take over the world and like barely have any animals left? Because
No,
we
like
become not
Mm,
any, but we become so dominant that we're pushing the animals out of the planet and
I
we're
mean,
taking up their habitats and
some
yeah,
animals.
well,
in a
uh,
sense, you could think that, let's say with cows, the more humans, the more, let's say, farmers would want to reproduce those cows,
of course.
for people to eat. So at the same rate, they will be decreasing because of the amount of people intaking them. The same rate they would be reproducing, get more into the
But
world to.
what
about
about
vegan
wildlife?
options? Yeah, wildlife as well,
Like
not just
wildlife
like bred by
animals.
us humans.
Yeah, I mean, some animals will definitely go extinct, but not birds, they'll live for long. But
No,
also,
not
we're
all of them.
yeah, but we're developing so much in technology, and we can take DNA from an animal and artificially reproduce it. So that's
Yeah,
something that might also happen in the future, and they're actually trying right now to uh, get the rhinos back.
yeah, the white rhinos.
There's only two females left, but they have uh, DNAs and sperm from
The last male.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they have five of those bottles uh,
So they have
frozen.
5 chances to
S-
reproduce.
Exactly, so there is a possibility of
and
getting back the white
yeah.
northern rhino.
Also, we are pretty like scientifically advanced.
Exactly.
We're seeing people that are able to breed, like for example, a pig and a jellyfish in their own home,
Mm-hmm.
creating
Yeah.
these very strange creatures. I think Isaac found he found someone that is breeding like
Mm-hmm.
animals that should not be bred and creating these crazy can you talk about it?
Yeah, I
Because
can
you
tell you some weird animals he has made. He has made monkey dog. He has made cat pig. He has
Dog,
made
squirrel.
yeah, dog squirrel. Um, yeah, it's mixed a hamster with a deer. So many weird animals. And the latest one, he mixed a monkey with a fish, and it looks like a human face. That's a fish, basically. It's really
and
weird.
You
it's
could think
crazy to
that
think that this man
one,
has just done this at his in his home. Like
yeah,
we can make
using, let's say, because this could be due to like Corona and the guidelines with the fact that he took the initiative, let's say in lockdown when he was at home. Same with a lot of people are they taking the initiative to go to, for example, the gym when they wouldn't normally do that because they have so much time on their
yeah
hands.
Yeah, definitely. Going about back to, so we talk about the positive impacts of Corona. However, thinking about the future, I have two reasons why COVID-19 is bad for the environment. So first of all, since the GDP has dropped so much in most of the countries, uh, the countries are trying to get it back up, and to do that, we have to like start production again and so on. We can't continue on the rate we had before. We need to catch up since we have
yeah
gone down. So that's the first reason, and the second reason, uh, the amount of face masks we've used have increased so much. And just
uh,
imagine using one face mask per day. It's not common in Sweden, but most of the other countries. And then for all the people, how much plastic waste that will be in the ocean, especially.
yeah. And since so many of them are being thrown out in the nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I
Hey,
think globally we use 129 billion face masks every month, according to BBC.
Along
And
with that, stated by BBC, 65 billion plastic gloves.
every
And
month,
think that that those, I mean, it's not stated how much, but think that a lot of those could go just be dumped in the ocean. And
yeah,
the amount of time it takes for them to fully dissolve is about 50 million years or 50,000 years.
I mean, it takes 450 years for them to like decompose to microplastic. Like,
yeah,
on, yeah, so it's still a lot, 450 years.
and yeah. Some say that the face masks are a ticking, like plastic bomb, since I think 3 million are thrown away every minute, and of course many of these are thrown in the out in the nature.
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine we use billions upon billions of these face masks, and we're gonna have like we're gonna see them in throughout nature, and it's gonna kind of like remind us of the coronavirus because we will never be able to like pick them all up. But is that because that's also like a negative
Uh,
impact of corona, that
and
not like the CO2 emissions, but the amount of plastic in the ocean has gone up by quite a bit as well.
Mm, yeah.
I mean, you could say in a sense that it was already that high. Um,
It was high, but it's just going higher, like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of plastics in the ocean.
It was at a point where it was like, we can't take any more plastic, it's too much. And now, just a big load of
Yeah,
on
face
more,
masks
yeah.
I feel like yeah, the
and
debate
plastic
of plastic,
equipments.
like I feel like people have kind of gone over the debate of like the harm that plastic does to the environment,
Yeah.
and it's kind of sad to see because like we don't have much time left to turn this earth around. Um,
Yeah.
and it was such a debated topic. like plastic bags. But I don't really see anyone talking about it nowadays.
Yeah, I
It's
agree
everyone
on that
focused
one.
on the coronavirus.
Along with straws, what happened to that?
They banned them in Sweden, at least.
Did they?
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
I still see them.
Where?
Me and Hamza went to Sibylla the other day, and they had plastic straws.
I
Yeah.
I
mean,
think I was at
okay,
McDonald's a couple months back, and I also saw plastic straws there.
no. Go to a local IKEA and try to find plastic straws.
Yeah, I don't think they can sell them, but I think in like fast food chains maybe or restaurants.
No, it's probably done like only um, small restaurants that maybe break against law. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really think straws, like minimizing the amount of straws, is gonna change the world? Because it's not
I
only
think that
straws,
it's not every country hasn't really like banned straws. It's not
Yeah,
a
no.
need for them. It's
Uh,
not their number one priority. Yeah, for Sweden, because Sweden is then in a sense leveled up with modernization and economically with being eco-efficient. Sweden's really ahead of that game with
Yeah, with
a lot of
for example, like the plastic bottles are a big issue for like pollution, but here in Sweden they have the pump system,
mm-hmm.
which
encourages people to recycle.
yeah, and it gives them a reason to do it. And I think it's a very efficient like way
It's a very
to
smart way, yeah.
to make. Yeah, it's very smart because I don't really see a downside of it either. They just add they add a crown to the total,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Or
can
two.
only get that money back, yeah, or two, by recycling the plastic. But do you guys think there could be other like other systems of this in maybe something other than plastic bottles?
Mm, yeah,
And if so, what?
could
Like
be.
they can't. Could you recycle plastic bags, for example?
No. That's
No.
smart. Recycling plastic bags.
Yeah.
It would just be better if we just totally go over to paper
Paper.
bags. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Also talking about the straws, I think it's mostly governments wants to do what the people like, and
Yeah,
the big
because
reason behind it is the viral video of where a turtle has a straw in its nose, and like they pull
yeah,
it out. That video
and that
is, yeah,
yeah, and because of that, like a lot of people broke out in protests,
and like
claiming
save
to
the
save the
turtles.
turtles. Yeah, through minimizing the use of plastic straws. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that protest against plastic was kind of temporary. Like it wasn't. It was kind of a trend,
Mm-hmm.
and
just for that one
in,
time, and
in
everyone
order,
was following on.
yeah, for the world to change, I think we need like a long protest instead, not like short period protests that are more of a trend. We need people who actually like fight for
In
the
my
better
opinion, protests
change.
nowadays are like trends only.
Yeah, exactly. Like I stand for the Black Lives Matter protest,
Yeah, of
but
course.
it's kind of sad to see how the protest only lasted for what, a few months, and then
Mm,
it just completely lost its popularity even with no changes being made.
yeah, and not only that, when protesters get too violent, such as in the Black Lives Matter protest and, for example, the protest in Hong Kong, when protesters get so violent and the protests get violence in general, it kind of loses its meaning as a protest. People don't take it as serious anymore.
They
Sin.
used, yeah, maybe I feel like some use the protest as an excuse to cause violence because you
Mm-hmm.
see like these peaceful protests that we had back in the days,
Mm-hmm.
like women that fought for equality, and I
Mm-hmm.
think like protests against racism, they were all like pretty much more peaceful compared to the protests we have nowadays.
Mm. Yeah, our world is so splitted when thinking about it.
I wonder what's gonna happen with the future generations. don't know. Do you think they
Hmm.
will be able to change the world for the better? I mean, it's kind of up to us, our generation, I think, because like we have to fix the world
Yeah,
before it's too late.
exactly.
And it's crazy to think that we are probably one of the last generations that actually can solve the issue of like the climate, like climate change and pollution. Hmm. Yeah.
It's just that our choices, that's how life works. It would, for the previous generation, let's say our parents, their choices in life led to us. Our choices in life would lead to the next generation, and it's gonna keep on going like that, no matter what like the circumstances are.
Yeah.
So, uh, that's just again how life works.
Yeah, definitely. So what have we talked about now? We've talked about the animals, talked a lot about the economy. Oh yeah, we can talk about the problems that happen right now, this day. Uh,
Such as.
India.
Oh,
It's a very tough situation now in India.
yeah. And
With
I've seen
the with the
saw a news
oxygen,
report on it. Yeah, their
Hmm.
oxygen levels are decreasing by a lot. They're running out of oxygen, and a lot of people are dying due to it.
There's a chaos in
Yeah,
India right now.
there's not enough hospitals to treat people, and the
Hmm.
government doesn't seem to care that much either about their people.
They don't have
yeah,
so much to do though, because
The government,
it's not a very rich country.
well,
Uh,
in a sense, that's just how it's perceived based on the the economy and how the people live. But the government could be like really extremely rich, but they're stingy to not distribute the money across the country.
and they have such a large population too.
yeah, it's almost the same as China's.
Only 1.5% of Indians have taken their second vaccine. So there's
Yeah,
barely anyone there who has taken the vaccine.
I don't think it's their fault. I think there's not enough in distribution in India.
Yeah, India is basically way too overpopulated. A country with over 1 billion people.
Yeah, I think they're on 1.39 billion people.
And it's
And
crazy to think how no oxygen. Like, think that going outside, you wouldn't think that oxygen can run out in like you would see look up and you would see the atmosphere and you think it's not possible for me to not be able to breathe in oxygen when I'm outside. But for them, there's so many people that it's got to a point where they need to be on um like
yeah,
uh what would you call it? Stored oxygen and oxygen.
Hmm. And there's
uh,
also
CO2. Or
there's also a few other reasons why India is such a bad situation right now. One of them is the lack of understanding of how to wear the face mask and lack of understanding generally about the virus.
I don't think,
All
yeah, there's not enough information. They don't really get taught how to treat it. And
definitely
also, I think the hygiene is pretty hard for them to handle because, I mean, a lot of people in India live in poverty, and I think it's hard for them to be able to like sustain good hygiene to be able to protect themselves from the virus.
also a large percentage of India's population are traditional and believe in traditional medicines. So
Yeah,
people have consumed herbs and cow urine instead of taking actual COVID vaccines.
Medicine.
So that's probably also a big reason.
yeah. I think,
Then again, that could come along with like poverty and the fact that they don't have the facility to get that. If they have access to it and they choose not to, that's based on that could be like something to do with culture maybe.
yeah, I think so. I think maybe culture and religion, but I do think that there is a lack of like supply and treatment for the
Yeah.
coronavirus. And I think it's hard
Let's
for
let's
the government as well because the population of China is just, oh no, of India, I'm sorry, is just like it's way too high for the government to be able to control in such
let's
a
say going
important
back to when we stated about China being ahead of time in a sense. Let's compare China and India. Their populations are somewhat similar.
yeah.
Yeah, China's a
Mm.
bigger country, but to think that look how the two countries handle the situation with the Chinese government fully closing down everything and having super strict rules. Um,
The
um,
thing is, China
for
has
example,
total control over their population, while
Yeah, that
India
is true.
don't.
Yeah, India
that
can't
just shows
control
the
the population at all.
circumstances.
I think
Uh,
they're like on two opposite ends of the spectrum. Like China has a lot of control over their people, like almost
Mhm.
too much. But then while India, they don't really have any control because they can barely even spread like the message to everyone.
Yeah.
do you think that if the government was better distributed with like let's say funds and money around the country, do you think China would be more ahead?
It's hard to tell. Wouldn't know really.
I think that there's so many people. Let's say a prime example is America with the fact that yeah, it's shown to be like oh really good country, really big, really nice and stuff like that with like New York, LA, California, stuff like that. But then you would think that there's so much poverty in America that's just like hidden behind all the big um
The flashy buildings and skyscrapers.
exactly,
Yeah,
and that could be the same situation, but with India, with the fact that it's not even public, they have nothing flashy. It's just known poverty in a sense.
Yeah, the thing
yeah, maybe
is,
it's a bit stereotypical.
the ratio from rich to poor is much higher in the US and China than in India. So India has much more poor people in percentage than the US and
Yeah.
China. So that's the reason why India
Do you
is
think they will be able
such a
to
big
become more modernized in the future? India.
India.
Yeah, because I think the issue of overpopulation in India is slowing down. Because as of, for example, 2007, the average number of children per woman, I think it was 2.82 children.
In
Well,
India.
now, yeah, in India. And let's say back in 2018, it was only 2.22. So I think they're in India, they're starting to slow down and like the amount of children they have,
Hmm.
which is a good sign for the future because overpopulation, I mean, it is a big issue. It's not really spoken of, and we still don't know if, like, if we be worried about it or not.
Yeah. Talking about COVID-19 and how countries have handled the situation, we can clearly see that China's done a good, um, has handled the situation really good. What do you guys
Yeah,
think about Sweden's way of handling COVID-19?
When it first really hit in Sweden, um everyone was praising it. Was so 50-50 because people were calling it silly with the fact that Sweden was not prioritizing their economy, you can't say that, but like they were protecting their economy from
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
collapse with by not making a lockdown while every other country was did that immediately. But they handled it so well with the fact that the cases was they were rates of
in the beginning, yeah,
they were
we were
really low with how
we were
many people were
praised
getting it
for,
per day.
yeah,
And
how,
even though there was no lockdown, but suddenly the rates just like increased. And
yeah,
even Sweden still cared about their economy. Yeah, they started like promoting the restrictions with the masks and social distancing. But apart from that, they still protected their economy really well.
and yeah, they really put the trust on the people, like as
Listen,
us
but
are, as we
you
are,
could
but
also say that was influenced by people's daily lives. For example, a lot of people aren't really social in a sense. The
Not
same
no,
with
not here in
China. Yeah,
Sweden.
it's like you wouldn't really expect it to spread that fast, even if there wasn't a lockdown,
Yeah,
because people really keep to themselves.
here in Sweden, yes. So I don't. I think it's a good idea, like the way they handled it at the beginning. Like it was going very well for us.
The
The
thing
economy
is,
has been staying pretty stable as well for us.
yeah, but the GDP went down from 2019 to 2020. So it's like Sweden has like uh, it's it the impact was much more lighter. However, it still impacted us. However, in China, they went like complete lockdown a few weeks, and China's GDP actually went up during
Yeah,
Corona times.
I think that was because of the mask production, probably because they were pushing out so many masks, and there was a high demand of it. But I mean, some also think that that China has lied about their numbers.
Uh,
I mean, they have the ability to do so.
I
Like,
don't think that's the case
pers- no, I mean,
because
it's hard for us.
since my grandparents lived there and they found out one person who had corona and their whole city had to go and get tested immediately and go for a 3 weeks lockdown. So
Yeah,
they do actually take it really seriously, and I don't think they lie about their cases
mm,
because everyone went in lockdown. It's
yeah, and especially being the country like the origin of the virus or itself was China, and they still were able to handle the situation so well that it's barely even an issue anymore there.
yeah, it isn't like I asked my mom how's it in China. She's like, ugh, the coronavirus barely exists there anymore.
Yeah,
People
Yeah,
live
and how it was so stereotypical about China being like the main source of it.
exactly, and then it
But let's
just
say even if China was the main source, they really kept their reputation up by getting it like fully completely gone, or not completely, but they really cut it out compared to, let's say, other countries that are, let's say, Italy and Paris, where it's still
Paris
so
is not a
much.
country.
uh
France.
You said Paris as a
oh
country.
sorry, yeah, but still Paris, Italy, Venice. Now I'm talking about cities.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the fact
Italy.
that they run, they used, like, example, Venice with like they have no roads, they go with boats.
hmm,
That's, they run on social. That's everyone there. City is like, it's literally a social city, and with that, everything just collapsed because no one could do anything with that to stay safe.
Yeah, so I think the lockdown is kind of required in those countries. Same with the Netherlands. Everyone is very social there. Like the whole neighborhood, everyone knows each other. Everyone speaks to each other every day. But then here in Sweden, we barely even like sit next to another person on the bus. So I think like the government didn't really have to do as much to control us and like the virus because Sweden as a country is already pretty antisocial.
that's true. Sweden had a advantage.
Yeah,
Comes to that. I think this is a good time to end the podcast for this episode. It was a fun topic to talk about.
yeah, it's very interesting.
We
Learn a
went
lot.
over the pros and cons of Corona and the impact, and over the different countries and their approach to how they handled the situation with COVID, how it
Yeah,
hit over time, how, based on how they accepted the, example, the regulations, how their economies changed. For example, China with their 60% decrease, in pollution in the air.
Yeah.
Is
It's
there
an
anything?
interesting one.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we wrap it up?
I don't think I have anything to add.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah. Thank you for
We will be
listening.
discussing, yeah, COVID and the current wars that
Exactly.
exist. Yeah,
So
we'll see.
similar, but
Looking
how
forward to
COVID
it.
has affected war and not the environment.
Yeah.
The links are down in the description if you wonder what source we use. So go down in the description. Also, our mail is down in the description if you have any questions. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.